Israelite in order to be a Pharisee. Any person could be a Pharisee if they committed themselves to memorizing large portions of the Old Testament, the entire law, and large portions of the rest of the Old Testament, and committed themselves to a very strict adherence of prayer and fasting and the rules that they followed, could become a Pharisee. And if people saw the Pharisees on the street, they paid them great respect. They admired them. So when Jesus says that unless your righteousness exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven, what he's saying is you're going to have to do better than even these men. Now what's the problem? Do you see the hypocrisy in the Pharisees? And Jesus said, I don't want you just to talk about the law. I want you also to do the law. We need to understand something. We have to do better than the sin of murder. What did Jesus say in verse 21? Chapter 5, verse 21. Ye have heard that it was said of them of old time, Thou shalt not kill. And whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. What did Jesus say? But I say unto you, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hell fire. Now right here we see that Jesus is talking about this, and what does he say? He says, yes, we understand that the very act of murder is wrong. But what does he say? He goes further, and what does he deal with? He doesn't deal with just the physical act. He deals with the heart that produces the act. You know, there's not somebody that just wakes up one day and decides, I'm just going to kill somebody. We don't see that. What usually happens with somebody, I'm not going to like that person. That person don't like me. That person don't like me. I'm not going to like them. We don't have a cause. We're just angry with the person. There's another term. If we hate our brother, what does hate mean? That means to actively desire the worst for somebody. We take joy when something bad happens to that person. Should a Christian ever have that attitude? Should we ever be happy when some calamity falls on? Notice the next statement. But whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Notice what he says. You regard people as worthless. You don't care about that person. You start regarding people. I'm just going to pay attention to the people that are good and not to the people that aren't that good. You're worthless to me. You don't matter. What is Jesus' attitude towards that? It's just as bad as murder. Do you see what Jesus is dealing with here? He's not just dealing with the act, but he's also dealing with the heart of the matter. Jesus said in verse 27 of chapter 5, Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. Again, Jesus deals with the heart of the issue. He says, you know that it's wrong to commit adultery. He says, yes, it's a sin to commit adultery, but Jesus says, I want to go further. I want to let you know that whosoever looketh on a woman, or if you're a woman who looketh on a man with lust in his heart, or her heart, hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. So we need to understand that adultery just doesn't just drop out of the clouds. It's not like one time you meet a woman and all of a sudden you're going to bed with her. That's not how it works. What does it usually start out with for a married couple? The man starts looking at a woman, or the woman starts looking at the man. Maybe they start talking to each other. They see they have some things in common. The woman's kind of attractive. The man is kind of good looking. A relationship develops, and it proceeds, and they start giving love and affection towards that person that should be going to their spouse, and pretty soon they wind up in a sexual relationship. Jesus says, look, there's a problem before the sexual relationship actually starts. There is a problem months earlier when you started up a relationship that should only be with your wife. And Jesus says, I don't want to just deal with the act, but we also have to deal with that heart, the attitude, the thoughts of our heart that produces these actions. And Jesus says, be careful, guard your heart. Don't even start trying to develop something with someone else who is not your wife. And by the way, the sin of adultery goes, we would call it fornication also, but there's still sexual sins with anyone who is not your husband or your wife. Understand this, all sexual sin outside the bands of marriage is wrong. You'll hear a lot of preachers talk about outside the bounds or the limits of marriage. And we need to be careful that we don't fall into these traps. Jesus says it's not merely the act, but it's also the attitude of the heart that started the act, that started us on that road. And some people think, well, as long as I don't do the thing, it's okay. Look, I'm looking at pornography. As long as I'm looking at pornography, but I'm not actually doing what they're doing on the TV,